Hello and welcome to Connect with Chris, where we catch up with distinguished alumni from the Quinnipiac University School of Communications. Joining us today is Bruce Taylor, class of 1981. Bruce is an award-winning cinematographer who has worked for ESPN, Disney, HBO, and virtually every major news network in the country. Thanks for joining us today, Bruce.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So, Bruce, you were one of the early employees at ESPN. What attracted you to ESPN?
Well, just the fact that they were willing to take me on as an intern back then. It was a network that no one had even heard of. I had tried to get into WTNH, Channel 8 here in New Haven, but the doors just weren't opening at the time. So there was a professor here, Keith Sandler was his name, and he was working up there part-time as a tape operator. And I told him I wanted to get in there and I wanted to start shooting and editing. And he pulled enough strings and got me in there as an intern. And then from that point on, they liked me and it was a good fit. So I stuck around for another 17 years.
So what were some of the things that you worked on when you were at ESPN?
Oh, wow. I worked on just about every major sport that you could think of. I did World Series, Super Bowls, Indy 500s, U.S. Open tennis and golf, and features on just about every athlete you could name. Back in the day, we did early features we did on Tiger Woods when he was in high school, and Shaq, and the Venus Williams sisters, and a whole slew of interesting athletes. We did it all.
So when you're covering an event like the World Series or a Super Bowl, what are you actually doing?
Well, typically we would go out there with a team of people. Baseball Tonight was one of the shows we did from the stadiums, along with SportsCenter. We would do all the pregame stuff. We would have our announcers out on the field and leading in and out of pieces that we shot for SportsCenter and for Baseball Tonight. And then we would shoot a little game action, go into the clubhouse, shoot the post-game interviews, and then any post-game wrap-up reports that they wanted to put on the air.
Okay, that sounds pretty impressive. I got to ask, did Chris Berman ever give you a nickname?
No, but Chris and I are actually very good friends. He's been a family friend of mine for, I don't know, 35 plus years. Kids grew up together. We used to vacation with them, and he's given me a couple of nicknames that I really can't tell you about right now.
Okay. So were you a sports nut? Was this something that was attractive to you?
You know, yes and no. I liked football. I liked NFL football growing up, but I was never a really big sports fan per se. I liked playing out on the playground with friends. We'd pick up games here and there, basketball, baseball, softball, stuff like that. But I was not a huge sports fan per se. That's what made ESPN really what it was in the early days. They would have a bunch of people that knew sports and a bunch of people that knew TV, and they put it together and created a pretty good product. But over the years, I started getting into the intricacies of each of these sports only because I had to. I was around it, and everybody I worked with was just consumed by it. So I had no choice. But through osmosis, I started to get a little bit more of an interest.
So after 17 years at ESPN, you decide to leave and you strike out on your own, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And so you're working for a whole bunch of other different networks. What was that like, and why did you decide to leave?
Well, I decided to leave mainly because I had been on the road 220 days a year on average, and I had 2 young kids, and I was never getting a chance to see them. So that was the main reason why I left, and I wanted to seek other opportunities. I did everything I could possibly do at ESPN. The only event I never covered was the Masters. But looking back, whatever, that's not a big deal to me. So yeah, I, I was lucky enough to have worked with so many talented producers and directors while at ESPN. Just prior to me leaving, Fox Sports out in Los Angeles went on the air and took a lot of folks from ESPN and NBC Sports and ABC Sports when it was a thing, CBS Sports, and all these people from ESPN were going to all these other networks. And I used that opportunity. I said, listen, I called them all and said, hey, I'm leaving ESPN. I've got my own gear. And if there's any work you have to throw my way, I'd be really appreciative. And thankfully, a lot of my friends landed at Fox Sports. And I still have many friends there today and do a lot of work for them. But they've branched out to Disney and, you know, and then a lot of freelance producers that have worked, you know, with all of these different networks all give me a call to do work for them. So it's worked out pretty well, I'd say.
So you're your own boss. You get to control where you go and when you go.
Theoretically, I am. You know, I joke with my friends saying, yeah, listen, I get to make all the calls now and what I want to take and what I don't want to take. Listen, I take all work, you know. Not all of it's fun. Not all of it's something that I enjoy doing. But listen, you know, you got to put the rice and beans on the table, and you got to hire all your freelance crew that, you know, depends on you hiring them too. So you got to keep everybody working.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Favorite sporting event to cover?
My favorite sporting event to cover, I would have to say one of them was the America's Cup, 1983. The United States had held on to the Cup for 132 years. It was the longest winning streak in sports history, and it looked like the first time we were going to lose it. And we did eventually lose it to the Australians. And I was shooting from helicopters and from the Goodyear blimp, and it was quite fun. It was a 4-month-long event. I lived in Newport at the time. At least they sent me up there to live, so that was a good one.
All right, we're going to take a break on Connect with Chris, and we'll be back with more with Bruce Taylor. We're back on Connect with Chris with award-winning cinematographer Bruce Taylor. Bruce, I wanted to ask you about how you developed some relationships. The first one is with Dan Patrick. You actually have helped him with his show. How did that evolve?
Dan and I go way back from when he was at ESPN doing SportsCenter. We traveled a bit on the road doing a lot of NBA stuff. And then when he left the mothership, so to say, he went to work for a company called DirecTV, which simulcast his radio show and his television show. I got a call from a friend of mine, John Ward, who was a vice president at Fox at the time. He had just gone to DirecTV, and he said, hey, I've got an easy one for you. I just want you to go in and light a studio for me. I said, that sounds easy enough. So I walked in, and I didn't know it was Dan's studio. They had just built it at the time. He was in his attic for a while shooting the show. But I walked in, and Dan was standing there, and he was looking at me. He goes, what are you doing here? And I said, well, John Ward called me to light this studio. And from there, he asked if I wanted to be, you know, their main camera person. And I turned down the job. I didn't want to give up all my other work that I had been doing and all the clients I had built up over the years. So we worked it out where I would just hire all the camera guys that would go in there, and I would rotate them in, and DirecTV would pay me to pay them, and that lasted for a good 10 years, 12 years. And then as you guys know, DirecTV got sold, or I should say AT&T bought DirecTV, sold off the audience channel, and he just found a new partner with Peacock TV, but
Okay.
It didn't wasn't able to bring us all along.
Okay. And you've also done a lot of work with Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Tell me about that.
Yeah, NFL Network was one of those networks that I was fortunate enough to break in with on the ground floor when they just first went on the air. The way it works for NFL Network is there's 32 teams, and essentially they have 32 crews. Each one of the crews covers the team's home games. So I do a lot of, still to this day, do all the Patriots home games, shoot all the features with all the players that NFL Network airs, and I also do features with the Patriots for Fox Sports with Aaron Andrews and their amazing producers that they have there.
All right. Bruce, tell us about your time at Quinnipiac. You worked for the radio station when you were here?
I did, yeah, WQAQ, where music rocks.
What else did you do at Quinnipiac?
Well, we worked on a show called Insight, which was, it was basically a magazine show that we would there was probably about 3 or 4 of us that we would go out and shoot what was happening on campus. And when we had enough material, we would put out a half-hour show, seen by no one. But you were able to catch it every now and then. They would wheel the AV cart across the blacktop with a monitor strapped on top of it and a little deck underneath, and they would play it outside the cafeteria. And every now and then you'd walk by, and they had it on a loop, you know. And every now and then you'd walk by and you'd see a few people standing there looking at it. But it gave us something to do, kept us off the streets.
Did you grow up around Quinnipiac?
I did. I grew up in Northford, Connecticut, which
Okay.
is probably only about, 20 minutes from here, down towards the shoreline.
So this was, coming to Quinnipiac was a natural choice for you?
It was yeah. You know, I had some friends that I had gone to high school with that ended up coming here ahead of me, and I would come on campus to, hang out with them, watch Monday Night Football, go to the Rat. I don't know if the Rat's still here, is it?
No, long
No,
gone.
Long gone. Probably for good reason.
All right, Bruce, this is the part of the show where I'm going to ask you either or questions. And we're going to ask you for an answer, and I'm going to ask for an explanation. It's kind of our way of getting to know our guests.
Okay, I'm ready.
First one, hamburgers or hot dogs?
Hamburgers.
And what do you take on it?
I like ketchup, mustard, relish. Yeah, I would go with that.
Okay. Mountains or beach?
Ooh, I have a home in New Hampshire in the mountains, but it's also on the water. So a perfect mix would be a combination of the two, but at gunpoint, I'd go beach.
All right, interesting. The New Hampshire beach or something further south?
Lake Winnipesaukee. I thought you were asking me where my place was. No, I would go where it's warm. I hate the cold.
Okay. Spring or fall?
Spring. Because in the fall you know what's coming, and like I said, I'm not a cold weather guy anymore. I used to ski every day, but my knees are gone, so I'm all about the warmth.
Coffee or tea?
I'll go both. I have a cup of tea right at my feet right now, but I always have a cup of coffee in the morning.
And what do you take in your coffee, or what do you take in
I
your
take
tea?
just a little skim milk in the coffee and nothing in my green tea, just water.
Interesting. Chocolate or vanilla?
Yes. I like them both.
Okay. Drama or comedy?
Comedy every time.
Excellent.
Every time.
What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, you're going to laugh. Well, it's really not that funny. It's a drama. The Wizard of Oz is my favorite movie of all time.
Interesting. That's not comedy.
No, that's drama.
First time I watched that was scary
Oh, yeah.
for me. All right, here's one that may get you in trouble. Canon or Nikon?
Well, For still cameras, I've always been a Nikon guy. However, that said, Nikon has always made amazing lenses, and in my cinema work, I have Canon prime lenses. So I would have to, I'll go Canon.
Okay. Steak or seafood?
Seafood. Not a red meat guy. Although I did admit to just eating a hamburger, right? But
and when we're talking about seafood, what are we talking about here?
we're talking anything. I'll eat any seafood. In fact, just recently I got the nerve up to eat an oyster, and so now I'm hooked on oysters too.
All right. Pepe's or Sally's?
Neither.
Are you a modern?
Modern, hands down.
I remember you now telling me I need to get the white clam with the lemon
Well,
in
listen,
modern.
Well, the white clam pie was invented at Pepe's. However, I still think modern makes a better white clam pie. And I would rate them modern, Sally's, then Pepe's.
Okay. See, I would go Sally's, modern, and then I would go like maybe bar.
Bar's good.
Before I'd go Pepe's. I am not a Pepe's fan. I don't know why, but
Yeah,
I've never been a Pepe's fan.
yeah, it doesn't do it for me either.
Yeah. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Excellent. What kind of dogs?
I have a black lab, and I've had black labs since I can remember. Since I left Quinnipiac, I've had a black lab. Not the same one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could never see myself without a dog.
Yeah. I had a black lab once. The only problem with the black lab is the black lab chewed the outside windowsills of my house
That's problematic. Yeah.
one afternoon, so we had to get all the windowsills replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Red Sox or Yankees?
Well, my mom grew up a block from Yankee Stadium, and she's upstairs now. But I'll tell you, if I ever said Red Sox, I think that she'd come back to haunt me. That said, I do work for both for MLB Network, so I'm impartial. I don't want to get haunted.
All right, Bruce, we are out of time. I would like to thank my guest, Bruce Taylor, for joining us on Connect with Chris. And don't forget our podcast, which is called Uncommon Grounds, where I interview Quinnipiac University School of Communication students. Thank you for joining us today.